everyone. Welcome to Inside Winston Cup Racing. Today we're in Harrisburg, North Carolina, near the Charlotte Motor Speedway at the Alan Kulwicki Racing Shops. This is where they build and maintain the Hooters Fords, which carried Alan to the 1992 NASCAR Winston Cup Championship. And what a drive it was. A very exciting Hooters 500 at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. We'll have all of that and much more in this half hour of Inside Winston Cup Racing.
Well, Bill Elliott won the battle in the Hooters 500 here in Atlanta, but it was Alan Kulwicki winning the war and his first ever Winston Cup championship. We'll have sound with Alan, Bill, and all the rest when we have highlights of the Hooters 500 coming up.
And you'll hear how some top car owners and drivers rated their performance in the 1992 season, as well as their outlook for next year.
Our cars this year are better than they were before. Our engines are much better than they were before, and I think the whole team gel this year. They say it takes 4 years for a team to gel, and this is our 4th year, so we're going to our 5th year, so maybe we'll win the championship next year.
Inside Winston Cup Racing is
week on race day. We'll have all the latest news from the world of motorsports, including the first off-season testing for the Winston Cup teams, and being live in Phoenix, we'll be able to set up the Midget World Challenge and the Slick 50 Sprint Car World Series live from Manzanita. Be sure to join us.
Race day, 2 different editions, 11:30 a.m. and 8:30 p.m. Eastern, TNN Motorsports Sundays.
You couldn't have written a script that would have been any better going into the Hooters 500 this past weekend at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. 6 drivers had a mathematical shot at winning the 1992 NASCAR Winston Cup Championship. Realistically, only 3 of them had a good shot. Davey Allison, who led, Alan Kulwicki, who was second, and Bill Elliott, who was third. The race went right down to the wire before we knew who the champion was going to be. And then add to that the fact that Richard Petty was retiring. After 35 glorious years in the NASCAR Winston Cup Series, he hung it up after the Hooters 500. And then there was a guy who won the pole that no one expected to. So the drama was all there. Randy Pemberton has the story.
With fanfare deserved only for a king, 7-time Winston Cup champion Richard Petty made it to his final race in a 35-year career that spanned with 200 victories, let alone 7 Winston Cup championships and the 7 Daytona 500s. It was the king, Richard Petty, in front of 170,000 fans strapping in for the final time. But that wasn't the only story here in Atlanta during the Hooters 500. 6 guys were vying for a Winston Cup championship. Davey Allison, Bill Elliott, Mark Martin, Harry Gant, Kyle Petty, and Alan Kulwicki, all hoping to cop the crown in 1992. But if there was another story here at Atlanta, it was the surprise story of the weekend, and that was because the driver of the Skull Classic Oldsmobile, Rick Mast, copped his first pole position of his Winston Cup career in Richard Petty's final race, and he did it in style with a brand new track record of over 180 miles an hour. The final race of the Winston Cup season started out as a dream come true for Rick Mast, but that quickly turned into a nightmare as on lap 2 he gets tapped and taken out of contention by Brett Bodine in his Ford. Bodine was bounced off the wall hard and hit by Hut Strickland. Both Bodine and Strickland were sidelined for the day. It was green flag racing for the next 54 laps, with Dale Earnhardt, Ernie Irvin, and Jeff Bodine the class of the field, while Bill Elliott and Alan Kulwicki battled it out for a top 5 showing. Other points players were slightly off the pace in the early going. Kyle Petty and Davey Allison were just outside of the top 10 when caution number 2 flew for Michael Waltrip's brush with the wall. That caution came during scheduled green flag pit stops, placing several drivers at the tail end of the field or 1 lap down. The biggest wreck of the day occurred on lap 96 of the 328.
Richard Petty is flaming going into turn number 1.
That wreck put a premature flaming finish on Richard Petty's Fan Appreciation Tour. The King would finish 35th. After the 5th yellow flag waved because of Dale Earnhardt's crash in turn 2, it turned into a duel between Kulwicki and Elliott for the title and the win. Although Davey Allison was lurking around the top 5, hoping to make it a 3-way fight. But it was not to be for Davey, as on lap 254, he and Ernie collected themselves up off of turn 4 finishing the race for Irvin and the title chase for the 28. With 70 to go, Alan seemed poised to pick up the win and the Winston Cup title. But he gave up the lead lap on his final green flag gas stop on lap 310. Elliott pitted 4 laps later, and when it all shook out, he was on his way to an 8-second victory over Kulwicki. Kulwicki would claim the title by just 10 points over Bill Elliott. Bill, it's been a long, hard-fought year. He came up a little short today as far as the championship goes, but the way you guys performed today, your team, and you as a driver, it's indicative of how good this team was.
Well, it really is. You know, we've kind of had our ups and downs the last half of the season, but we've still been strong. You know, we've had some things go wrong, and, you know, like I told them guys a minute ago, for what we've accomplished this season and everything we've done for the Budweiser-Amoco team, we've had a fantastic year. And to win here in front of the hometown crowd is worth $1 million to me.
What about Alan as a champion? I mean, he's had a good year as well.
He's had a fantastic year, and I mean, I congratulate him and all the guys that for a hard-fought year is what we've done. He deserves it.
Well, certainly the fans were disappointed that Richard Petty had to go out the way that he did, but he was just a victim of circumstances. But certainly Alan Kulwicki and Bill Elliott made up for it, and the drama with Davey Allison all combined made for some kind of a great race day. Well, we need to take a short break right now. When we come back, we're going to have an extensive interview with Alan Kulwicki and Victory Lane. You stay with us.
I joined a diet plan and spent $90 a week to go from a size 12.
Alan Kulwicki moved from his home state of Wisconsin back in 1985 to pursue a career in NASCAR Winston Cup Racing. He didn't have much when he came here, but he has built one of the most respected teams in all of auto racing. And certainly the fact that he won the 1992 NASCAR Winston Cup Championship is evidence that he has a great team, a great group of people here, and a good company sponsoring him, the Hooters people. Randy Pemberton had an opportunity to talk with Alan in Victory Lane just after he had taken the checkered flag for his first championship.
Well, Ned, car owner driver Winston Cup champions certainly aren't new to the sport of Winston Cup racing, but they've been infrequent over the past few years. Champ, your thoughts, how's it feel?
It feels good, real good to hear you say that. I really owe a lot of the credit to the crew. I'll tell you, I have a good team here, a small, tough team that's really stuck with it through thick and thin. And, you know, when I didn't have a sponsor, they stuck with me. And, you know, we've had some tough times. You know, this is not easy business, you know, and they hung in there, and they really deserve a lot of the credit. I couldn't do it without them.
It's been tooth and nail all year long, but let's just particularly talk about this race. It was tooth and nail today. How did they keep you apprised of where you were? I know you were running as hard as you could. You wanted to lead as many laps as you could, but did you know where you were points-wise today?
At the end, I did. I said, I don't even want to hear about points till we get down to like 100 miles to go or something, and then just let me know where I'm at. And we were racing to try to win that race, you know, and they told me I had to lead to lap 310 to lead the most laps, and I knew when I did that, then Bill couldn't beat me anymore unless we really screwed up. And we lost first gear in the transmission on the first pit stop, and that hurt us all day long. And, you know, the last pit stop, I was maybe a little cautious getting in. The transmission hurt us getting out, and you know, we had about 1.5 seconds, almost 2 second lead on him at one point, and he came out 3.5 ahead of us. So at that point, I knew I probably couldn't beat him for the win, and it would have been nice to win the race. But at that point, you know, I knew that we were in position to win the championship and didn't want to do anything stupid. I didn't want to let him pressure me into making a stupid mistake and get caught speeding down pit road or something like that. So probably a little conservative, but we did what we had to do, and that was win the Winston Cup Championship today. I've been a little bit of an underdog. We nicknamed this car the Underbird and had Mighty Mouse on the front end of it, and I've been the underdog a lot of my career, and hopefully that'll be an inspiration to thousands of short track racers across the country that are maybe aspiring to do this, and Busch Grand National drivers, and maybe it'll help some of the people that are dreaming about doing this to believe in themselves, and you know, if I can do it, maybe they can too.
How long have you been dreaming about this? You've been racing for a long, long time. How long has it been?
Well, ever since I moved down south about 7 years ago, and you know, I was trying to figure out how to break into this 5 years before I ever did move down south. So, you know, realistically, this hasn't been a realistic goal until the last year or two, and I'll tell you, this is just the dream of a lifetime.
How do you plan? Can you ever top it? I know you have to live this year as a champion. You feel like you're going to be a great champion?
Well, you know, I'm going to do the best I can. You know, the fans are important, and it's hard to be all things to all people all the time, but I'm going to do the best job I can and accommodate as many as I can, as often as I can, because I realize that's part of the job, and that goes with the territory. And all I can say is I'll approach that the way I approached this race, and that was just, namely, do my best.
And that's kind of the philosophy that one man lived by. Richard Petty, who was out here today running his final race. I know that must mean a lot to you, winning this championship and, you know, the King's final race.
Well, it's going to be sad to see him go. There'll never be anybody quite like him again in Winston Cup Racing, I don't think. I'm going to do my best to try to carve my own niche in this, but there'll never be another Richard Petty, and, you know, I think we've all learned a little bit from him.
Alan, congratulations. I'm happy for you. Great job.
Good job, Alan.
Great job, man.
Folks, I think Alan Kulwicki will make a great spokesperson for the sport of auto racing. He will be a good representative for the NASCAR Winston Cup Series. Hey, it's holiday time. You know what that means? Our Book a Ride sweepstakes. A lot of great prizes just waiting for you, and here's how you can enter.
Race fans, order your copy of the 92 Winston Cup Yearbook for Christmas and enter the great Book a Ride Sweepstakes 3, where you could win an all-expense-paid trip of a lifetime to the Charlotte Motor Speedway for the Coca-Cola 600, or win an official NASCAR racing jacket, or copies of NASCAR Video Magazine. Time's limited, so call 1-800-632-1100 now and order your Winston Cup Yearbook, and we'll automatically enter you into the sweepstakes. Remember, you cannot enter the sweepstakes over the phone unless you place an order. To enter without making a purchase, send your complete name, address, and phone number on a postcard to this address. You'll love this bonded leather coffee table collector's edition, featuring great color photography of the entire 92 season, including a special final season tribute to the King. Hurry, only a limited number are available to the public, and at just $34.95, they'll sell out fast. So get your copy of the 92 Winston Cup Yearbook today and book your ride to next year's Coca-Cola 600. Entry deadline December 31st, and you must be 21 or older to win. Give your race fan the gift that lasts a lifetime. Order your copy of the Winston Cup Yearbook today.
All of these championship-winning drivers have one thing in common: Goodyear Racing Eagles. The race-winning technology that's found in the Goodyear Racing Eagles can also be found in the world's best-selling line of high-performance street tires, Goodyear Eagle Street Radials. The champions know, and it's why we say the best tires in the world have Goodyear written all over them.
'92 was another season of change in Winston Cup Racing, from the lighting of a major superspeedway to stock cars running at the famed Brickyard. It's been a year to remember, and next week we'll look back at some of your favorite stories from 1992.
Certainly 1992 was a great year for Alan Kulwicki and the Hooters Ford team, and for Bill Elliott and the Budweiser team as well. But there were some others in the sport who had some highs and some lows. Our Inside Winston Cup crew had an opportunity to talk to some of the personalities in the sport about their year.
We knew we were going to have to race hard, and that's what we came to do. We weren't laying back, and, you know, there was a lot of good racing going on. And I just hate that our race came to an end the way that it did, because our guys deserved better. But it wasn't meant to be this year, so we'll go get ready for 1993 now.
Even before the final race of 1992 was finished, the focus of the front-runners in Winston Cup Racing was already on 1993. There is no off-season in this speedy sport. You race around the track, around the clock, around the calendar. Training camp begins right after the final checkered flag falls. When the race in Atlanta was over, another race was about to begin.
We had a great run today. We entered a year on a high note. We feel like we're a really good, strong team that's meshed together now, 2 years experience to win the title next year. And Roger Penske just left out of there and congratulated all the guys and said, hey, it's our turn next year. And starting tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock, we're just a wide open test schedule and we're prepared for it.
The NASCAR season starts with the Super Bowl, where points and performance are just as important on lap 1 as they will be throughout the scorching summer months that follow. For Robert Yates Racing and the Texaco Haviland Ford Thunderbird crew, little time is devoted to the disappointment of Davy's final day. Instead, the direction is forward to the future, feeding off the good fortune found in a season of fantastic finishes and spectacular setbacks.
We dodged a lot of bullets. We just didn't dodge the last one. Sure could have been a lot sweeter. You know, this is about like that deal at Darlington, you know, where we ran so well and just things just didn't rain on us right. But I sure remember back to Pocono when I sort of thought that we were out of business. So I'm real upbeat.
Optimism is the common thread woven through every race team. With the racing season over, attention is turned to testing. Time is spent preparing for tomorrow. An endless effort fueled by the fortunes and failures of yesterday.
Well, I'll tell you, you know, we've had a lot of attention moments. We've had a lot of Friday and Saturday nights where we had to go in and make massive chassis changes, you know, race morning that did pay off. Just good communications. And we've had a little bit of screaming and hollering and a little Hatfield and the McCoys kind of deal, but you know, I just don't want our guys to go home and kick the dog too hard or kick the children too much. And, you know, for all our team, just take care of your wives a little bit here for a couple of days, and then we'll get back and get ready for Daytona.
Kyle Petty didn't win the Winston Cup, but his success in 1992 shifted him from pretender to contender in the chase for the championship. For the first time in his career, Kyle won 2 races in one season and earned renewed respect for his racing abilities.
Well, you know, I think Kyle was always a pretty decent driver. I think our cars this year are better than they were before. Our engines are much better than they were before. And I think the whole team gel this year. They say it takes 4 years for a team to gel, and this is our 4th year, so we're going to our 5th year, so maybe we'll win the championship next year.
Perhaps no front-runner faced the frustration that fell defending champion Dale Earnhardt. His string of 2 consecutive Winston Cup titles was snapped by a season of hits, misses, and just 1 win. At Richard Childress Racing, the new season can't start soon enough.
Well, we go to testing in about 3 days, so we'll be testing for Daytona in about 3 or 4 days from now. So it's going to be an interesting year next year without Kurt. We're all going to miss him, but we're also looking very forward with our new contract with Goodwrench and with Dale. And GM Parts has been a super sponsor, and we've got them for through '96, so that makes us feel great.
So there is little rest for race teams that want to win next year, and there is little room for the pain that might remain from not winning this year.
The only thing that's probably going to hurt is maybe her shopping will be a little bit less than it would have been, but you know, all the guys have a good time. Texaco, Haviland, Ford, everybody takes care of us so well. We're going to eat good and get ready for next season.
Today's mailbox is brought to you by Miller Genuine Draft.
A question today is from T.R. Sikora from Gallatin, Pennsylvania, who writes, we see these big tractor-trailer rigs that haul the cars, tools, tires, and offices in them. Who owns them, the car owner or the sponsor? Well, that's a good question, T.R., and for the answer, we'll go to Don Miller, who is part owner and general manager of the Miller team that Rusty Wallace drives for.
Well, T.R., let me tell you this. We have quite a few large tractor-trailers on this circuit. Each of the race teams themselves own the tractor and the trailer, and each one of them is custom built so that it best fits the needs of the particular team. You can go in and look in some of them, and they've got as fancy a lounge or living area as you'd ever want to see, where others are strictly utilitarian. They're built strictly for service. Many of the teams have a race truck as well as a test truck, and I think that's indicative of the way things are going now, because the testing becomes more and more important as we go down the road. So when you see one of these big rigs going down there, You just see one more investment for the team owner and the team.
If you have any race questions, write to us at Inside Winston Cup Racing, Box 240417, Charlotte 28224. If we use your question on the air, you'll receive this embroidered Miller Genuine Draft Jacket. You'll also receive a copy of NASCAR videos, A Week in the Life of a Race Team, the latest volume in the exciting series, bringing the NASCAR lifestyle roaring into your living room.
Well, our time's up for today. Hope you enjoyed the show. And again, our congratulations to Alan Kulwicki and the Hooters team for their championship in 1992. We'll see you right back here on TNN next week for more on Inside Winston Cup Racing.
Race fans, if you're making plans for next season and you'd like copies of the 1993 Winston Cup schedule, here are two ways to get some. Either send a self-addressed stamped envelope to this address, or if it's more convenient and you have a touch-tone phone, you can call us at 1-900-73-RACES. Call is 95 cents per minute, average call 2 minutes. Fans 18 and under, get your parents' permission before calling. Inside Winston Cup Racing has been brought to you by cold-filtered Miller Genuine Draft and Miller Genuine Draft Light, taking the country by storm. And by Goodyear, #1 in tires. Transportation for the Inside Winston Cup Racing crew provided by Fleetwood Enterprises, makers of a full line of excellent recreational vehicles. Clothing for the Inside Winston Cup Racing crew provided by Simpson Race Products, where innovation never stops. Promotional consideration and a fee paid for by NASCAR Video, taking you behind the scenes to meet the top drivers and personalities in the sport. Get your first volume featuring A Week in the Life of a Race Team. Order today.